Hi, this is Gabe Ignetti, and this is the Eco-Modernist Soapbox. I want to welcome you all back on. Sorry we were out last week. It happens from time to time. What we're going to speak about today is actually a statement by Dr. Jason Chow. We had him on last Sunday, and the edited version is on YouTube. It's well worth seeing. Dr. Chow is a renowned professor. He's wrote an encyclopedia about everything atomic energy. And it's called The Complete Perspective on Nuclear Energy. He's reviewed 3,000 papers in the nuclear field over a long career stretching 23 years. And what the Dr. Chow said is that the next nuclear accident will happen in China. And so I thought it was interesting to kind of go into it a little bit on my own and find out how much there is to that, and also to talk about what the repercussions would be. Now, I know, like, when we talk about Fukushima and even Chernobyl, and those of us who understand radiation and understand a bit about nuclear realize that a nuclear accident, from a point of view of being a catastrophe, is really not. It's one of the lightest accidents, but of course the world press, they take that to town and just exaggerate it for because sensationalism sells. Very common thing. So that's all true. But the thing is, a nuclear accident is a major disaster, not only for making people sick, but just it's a disaster for the future of nuclear power. Remember, Chernobyl and then Fukushima caused a reversal of nuclear power, not just stopping it. It's been reversed. 1/3 of Germany was run on nuclear power before the Chernobyl accident, and now it's all gone, even though they're in the midst of a shortage caused by a major war of energy. So it is a serious thing, because climate is a serious thing. And if we don't use nuclear to solve this issue, and if we'll get serious about using nuclear to a much greater extent than it is used, we're in deep trouble. This article is from Radio Free Asia, and I know that could be considered propaganda, but I think the information is pretty correct about China. And one thing about single party states is that not having a good media, independent media, allows state actors to get away with much more than they could otherwise. So let's look at this article. Chinese nuclear plant incident highlights systematic safety concerns. And a string of mishaps at China nuclear power plant last year has raised concerns about the safety of a rapidly growing industry. Now, this is not a rapidly growing industry, unfortunately. I'll get into that a little later, especially given the country's overall industrial safety record, experts told Radio Free Asia. And last October, the National Nuclear Safety Administration made public 16 safety failures that occurred in Chinese nuclear plants in 2016, all involving mistakes made by staff members, official media reported. Now, I guess I'm contradicting myself because that's an official media reporting this. But the 16 errors in incidents took place at 8 nuclear power stations, and 6 incidents involved staff members breaching operational guidelines, and 4 were caused by a lack of internal communication. None of the errors is believed to have resulted in a leakage of radioactive material, nor posed any threat to the public. The report comes against a backdrop of a litany of industrial accidents and public and safety disasters in recent years. In a commentary published by the Communist Party, The People's Daily, Beijing nuclear expert Wang Jing said that part of the problem stems from the fact that officials in the Nuclear Safety Inspection Department are lower in rank than the officials in the state-owned nuclear enterprises whom they're supposed to be inspecting. A former nuclear power plant engineer, Liang Taiping, said a relatively high incidence of man-made incidents in the nuclear industry is a product of the political system. The system that operates in China at the moment has created a wholesale layer of trained technical staff who are under a huge amount of pressure. Not many people want to train in the technical professions. They all want to be party officials. So accidents and malfunctions are more likely. And this is true that you have to be ideologically correct to probably to get in those positions. So was a failure of the Soviet system, major failure. The Lysenko affair, I don't know if my viewers know about this, but this happened under Stalin, where this geneticist called by the name of Lysenko, I forget his first name, he was favored by Stalin and the Communist Party because his theories of plant genetics were more copacetic to the Communist Party. Once they embraced that, 3,000 scientists and people who tried to correct that theory, which disrupted Soviet agriculture tremendously because it was all junk science. And the people who tried to correct it, 3,000 of them ended up in the gulag for criticizing the state on this. So you have to be careful in communist countries. So like I said, China is only now beginning to emerge from a culture of absolute secrecy surrounding the nuclear industry. And that's an important thing. That's was the main, I think, problem with the former Soviet Union was that was a cause of the attempt to cover up the nuclear disaster, the way it was handled. Appearances are more important than actually dealing with the facts on the ground. So that was one thing that was a part of the Chernobyl movie HBO had that was pretty correct. But anyhow, all nuclear industry enterprises were designated secret. And so nobody wanted to dare speak freely or publicly about anything. And China has traditionally treated any information about nuclear power stations is highly confidential. This sort of operation, quoting Lang, takes place behind closed doors as far as the rest of the world is concerned. Again, quoting him, the only reason the National Nuclear Safety Administration has published these figures is international pressure operating behind the scenes. And it's not just nuclear power plant. Look at the Tianjin explosion, which was a huge cover-up. By the way, the greatest hydro disaster occurred in China, and I believe that was because of shoddy workmanship. And that was the Bangkok Dam, which left 1 million people homeless, and I believe it killed like 120,000 people in China. And they say that the Three Gorges Dam has issues with shoddy construction. That's the biggest dam in the world. Oh, God forbid that should ever go. Okay. Zhang said managers and local leaders are likely to turn a blind eye when corners are cut, as long as the bottom line looks good. If they do not take responsibility and start dealing with these issues, they just run into even bigger networks of vested interests, he said. China has a formal risk assessment and safety procedures to cover every possible incident or accident, he also said. But he said that the overall attitude of health and safety seems to be that procedures are just for show, and such laxity is commonplace throughout the entire workforce. These risk assessments and contingent plans are formed according to unified guidelines issued by the International Atomic Energy Agency. But I've been in China companies where there are just things that you stick on the wall. This article here is from a better source, actually. It's a MIT Technological Review. And this talks about the aftermath of Fukushima for China. And it's very revealing in showing what would happen in the future if China had a nuclear accident and how things just flip public opinion. The industry has not broken ground on a new power plant in China since late 2016, according to the World Nuclear Industry Status Report, which shows this is not a growing industry. Unfortunately, officially, and I say unfortunately because they're building AP1000s, and I have total confidence in even a badly run AP1000. I mean, they have backup systems that gravity fed. You got days to adjust your system. I think you have a week, I believe. The 2011 meltdown of Japan's Fukushima Daiichi plant shocked Chinese officials and made strong impressions on many Chinese citizens. An August 2017 survey found only 40% of the public supported nuclear power development. But the biggest problem is financial. And I know we have, pro-nuclear people who say, well, no, in the long run, it is cheaper. But considering the fact that a nuclear power plant takes 17 years, according to the energy professor at Champaign, Indiana, I believe, it's a long time, and extremely long time. It's a very long-term investment when you're talking about break even for a government, even an advanced country, that's a long time. So, I mean, I agree over the long term, it's a wonderful investment. I always say that, the greatest investment that the Egyptians made was the pyramids. Tremendous loss, complete loss in terms of economically for the Egyptian people for millennia. But the Egyptians of today, I mean, they're making so much money off of the tourism, and they will, and they have, and this is going to go on for centuries going into the future. So tremendously good, but over the long haul. But it's hard to kind of plan in the long haul because it's a long haul. Just it's like the more immediate thing is always the better, and that's why that is an advantage that renewables have. But the bigger problem is financial. Going back to this article, and a reactor is built with extra safety features and more robust cooling systems to avoid Fukushima-like disasters are expensive, while costs for wind and solar continue to plummet. They're now 20% cheaper than electricity from new nuclear plants in China, according to Bloomberg Energy Financial. I don't know if that's the capacity factor they're talking about. That's a good question. Now, here's the interesting thing, which makes us think about projecting forward if there was a nuclear accident. When the Fukushima accident happened, the event called into question the Japanese government's competence. And what was said was that if any event like Fukushima punctures that image of competence, that's very, very consequential, said William Overholt, a China expert at Harvard University Kennedy School of Government. That would delegitimize the regime. And remember that Chernobyl played a tremendous part in delegitimizing the regime under Gorbachev in the Soviet Union. So within days of Fukushima, nuclear construction was frozen in China as a result. And damage to public confidence was severe. Local officials suspended work on a recycling plant for spent nuclear fuel. And of course, the Chinese are using the AP-1000s, but the added safety is very expensive. For an AP-1000, the construction cost is nearly double that of the conventional nuclear technology commonly used in China. So when you build one, it's like you're building two reactors in the old days. Coal remains the cheapest source, but the grid operators face demands from government to use more renewable energy to limit pollution. So it's an expensive thing. And China's hopes are on the advanced reactors, and especially I would say the newest thorium reactors, which would be could be a game changer worldwide. But the last thing we want is a major nuclear accident anywhere, because I mean, this would set us back to square one. It could put us in reverse again around the world. I don't know how the world would react in this day and time, because a lot of the fears of radiation go back to the Cold War and the atomic bomb and the radiation casualties from before the nuclear test ban. So the public might react less negatively, and we might be able to overcome a Chinese accident. But as you can see, the Chinese are aware of this too. So this might hopefully they might up their game for fear of legitimizing the regime. So it's really an open question. And I hope the Chinese do keep up their nuclear program, but I also hope that they have a safety protocols that are followed, and not kind of just window dressing. Anyhow, that's all I have to say today. This has been the Eco-Modernist channel live that we're on. And so I want you to support us, please. It's the easiest thing to do. Click subscribe, click like on our videos. And I know our shows on Wednesday are informal, but if you like to have a little better content, join us on Sunday, every Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, and 6 p.m., which is daylight savings, Greenwich Mean Time. And we always have good people. We had Jason Chow last week. We always try to get really good people to come on. We have some really good shows. So anyhow, please join us next week, and you all take care and stay well. Bye-bye.